Be me 28. Work a decent IT job from home most days. Nothing special, just a regular guy trying to make things work. Live with my girlfriend Stacy for about 2 years. When we first got together, things were great. She was fun, energetic. We had the same sense of humor. The usual honeymoon phase stuff. But over the last year or so, things started to change. She got really into online social justice stuff. Not the kind that helps people, but the kind that finds problems in everything. Every conversation started to feel like a lecture. Every movie we watched had to be deconstructed for its problematic elements. Every interaction I had was put under a microscope for signs of toxic masculinity. It was exhausting, but I loved her. So I tried to be patient. I figured it was just a phase. My main role in the relationship slowly shifted. I went from being her boyfriend to being her personal sounding board, her emotional sponge. A perfect example happened a few months back, maybe in the spring. I was finishing up work on a Wednesday evening, finally closing my laptop, ready to just zone out and play some video games. The door opens and Stacy comes in like a hurricane, slams her purse on the counter, throws her keys into the bowl so hard they rattle. I know the look on her face. It's her, "the world has wronged me" face. I pause my game before it even starts. "Hey, rough day?" I ask. That's the only invitation she needs. For the next hour, I get a full, unabridged monologue about her job. Apparently, a promotion she was sure she was going to get went to someone else. Another woman in her department, a person she always complained about. She paced back and forth in the living room, dissecting every single reason why it was a grave injustice. Her boss was a secret misogynist who promoted the other woman to fill a quota. The other woman was a backstabber who probably stole her ideas. The whole system was rigged against her specifically. I just sat there on the couch and listened. I nodded in all the right places. I made sympathetic noises. When she finally ran out of steam, I did what I always did. I got up, made her a cup of chamomile tea, and sat down next to her. I told her she was right to be upset. I told her that her feelings were valid. I spent another 30 minutes helping her draft a professional but firm email to her boss asking for feedback. In reality, I just took her angry rant and rephrased it in corporate speak so she wouldn't get fired. She finally calmed down. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek, said thanks, and then immediately picked up her phone, started scrolling through social media, completely absorbed. I was left sitting there, mentally drained, my tea getting cold. My own plans for the evening were completely gone. That was a regular occurrence. My own bad days, my own stresses from work, there was never any room for them. If I ever tried to bring them up, the conversation would somehow pivot back to her within minutes. My server migration issue was nothing compared to the rude comment a stranger left on her Instagram post. I talked to my best friend Willie about it one weekend. We were at a bar just catching up. He asked me how things were with Stacy. I gave him the non-committal. "Yeah, they're good, you know." He just looked at me. He's known me since we were kids. He can read me like a book. He said, "Dude, you look tired. Not like need more sleep tired, but soul tired." I ended up telling him about the constant venting, the one-sided support system our relationship had become. Willie took a long sip of his beer. He told me, "You're not her boyfriend, man. You're her emotional janitor. She just dumps all her garbage on you at the end of the day and expects you to clean it up." He said it wasn't a partnership if only one person was doing all the emotional heavy lifting. I knew he was right, but I didn't know what to do. I still cared about her. I thought maybe I could fix it. I thought if I just supported her enough, eventually she'd be happy and things would go back to normal. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday. It was the end of a massive project at my job. We were rolling out a new system, and of course, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The servers crashed. Data was corrupted. Clients were screaming. I had been working 14-hour days for a week straight, fueled by nothing but caffeine and stress. That day, we finally fixed the last bug. The project was done. I came home feeling like a zombie. I was completely hollowed out. All I wanted was a hot shower and silence. I walk in the door and Stacy is standing there, phone in hand, with that same furious look on her face. I didn't even have my shoes off yet. She starts in on me immediately. Not about her job this time, not about her friends, about some online argument she was having with a total stranger on the internet. Some guy disagreed with her about a movie, and she was acting like he'd committed a war crime. "I just can't believe the nerve of some men," she said, shoving her phone in my face. "Look at this comment. This is pure, unadulterated toxic masculinity." I couldn't even read the words on the screen. My eyes were blurry from staring at code all day. I put my hand up. "Stacy," I said, my voice probably sounding as worn out as I felt. "Please, can we not do this tonight? I've had a horrible, horrible day. I can't." It was the first time I had ever pushed back. The first time I had ever put my own needs first. She stopped. She stared at me. Her expression wasn't hurt. It wasn't sympathetic. It was cold, academic fury, like a professor whose stupidest student just questioned their life's work. She crossed her arms. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Just, wow." She took a deep breath, like she was preparing for a debate. "Do you have any idea what you're doing right now? You're dismissing my lived experience. You're refusing to perform the basic emotional labor required in a partnership." I just stared at her. Emotional labor? That was a new one. I'd heard her use it when talking about her job, but never about us. She went on. She explained to me, like I was a child, that listening to her problems, validating her feelings, and providing comfort was a form of labor. It was a job that women, historically, have been forced to do for men for free. She said that when I refuse to do it, I'm contributing to a patriarchal system that devalues this essential work. She told me I should be grateful that she even feels comfortable enough to assign me this task. Every word she said was like a small, sharp icicle stabbing into my brain. I wasn't her boyfriend, I wasn't her partner, I was an unpaid employee, and I had just tried to clock out early. Something inside me just broke. Not in a loud, dramatic way. It was a quiet, clean snap. The part of me that was trying so hard, the part that was making excuses for her, the part that was absorbing all her negativity, it just vanished. A strange calm washed over me. I looked at her, standing there in our living room, lecturing me about my duties. And for the first time, I saw her not as the woman I loved, but as a bad manager. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded slowly. I looked her right in the eye. "You're right," I said. My voice was completely flat. "It is labor. I understand now." Her smug expression told me she thought she'd won. She thought she'd educated me. She had no idea what had just happened. She had just given me the rulebook to a game I was tired of playing. And I was about to follow those rules to the absolute letter. The next morning, the change began. I didn't announce it, I just did it. She was in the kitchen, complaining about how the coffee tasted weird. Normally, I'd apologize for some reason, or offer to make a new pot, or ask a dozen questions about what was wrong with it. Instead, I just looked at it. "I see," I said. "You could submit a formal complaint to the manufacturer if you believe the product is defective." Then I just went back to eating my toast. She blinked, confused. "What?" "I was just saying—" "Your statement has been logged," I replied, without looking up. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just went quiet. Later that day, she texted me. It was a long wall of text about a fight she was having with one of her friends. Standard procedure was for me to text back a novel of my own, full of supportive phrases and questions designed to make her feel heard. This time, I waited a few minutes. Then I replied, "That sounds like a challenging interpersonal conflict. What is your desired resolution?" Her reply came back instantly, followed by, "I just want you to listen to me." My response, "I have received and processed your statement. Do you require a data-driven analysis or a list of potential conflict resolution strategies?" She just sent back a single angry thumbs down emoji. I didn't reply. This went on for weeks. I was the perfect boyfriend on paper. I still did my share of the chores, sometimes even more. I was polite. I was punctual. I asked about her day. But when she answered, when she started her usual venting, I became a corporate HR robot. My coworker took credit for my idea. "Have you documented this incident with a timestamp and reported it through the proper channels?" I feel like my friends are leaving me out. "Have you reviewed the terms of your social contract with these individuals? Perhaps a renegotiation is in order. I just feel so sad today, and I don't know why." Emotional states without clear causal factors can be difficult to analyze. I recommend monitoring your symptoms and consulting a professional if they persist. It was driving her insane. She couldn't get angry at me because I wasn't being mean. I was being logical and helpful. I was offering solutions. But I wasn't giving her what she actually wanted, my emotional energy, my sympathy, my soul. I was no longer her janitor. I was now a help desk technician, and she didn't have the right ticket number. One Saturday night, we went to a party at a mutual friend's house. It was the first time we'd socialized as a couple in a while. Stacy was in a circle with some of her friends, and I was on the other side of the room talking to Willie. He gave me a look. "So, how's the new management style working out?" I just smiled. "Productivity is down, but my personal morale is at an all-time high." He clapped me on the shoulder, laughing. Later in the evening, I saw Stacy get into a debate with some guy. It was getting a little heated. The guy wasn't being aggressive, but he was challenging her points, and she was getting flustered. She kept glancing over at me. It was the silent signal, the "come save me" look, the "get over here and back me up" bat signal she'd used 100 times before. Old me would have dropped everything and rushed to her side. I would have jumped into the argument, defended her position whether I agreed with it or not. New me just took a sip of my drink. I met her gaze from across the room. I gave her a small, encouraging nod. A completely neutral gesture. "You got this, champ." Her face fell. The look of betrayal was so intense it was almost comical. She quickly fumbled her way out of the conversation and came storming over to me. "Why didn't you help me?" she hissed, keeping her voice low. "Help you with what?" I asked, feigning ignorance. It seemed like a standard exchange of ideas. "You appeared to be holding your own." "He was being a condescending jerk. You were supposed to back me up. That's what a boyfriend does." I tilted my head. "My role, as I understand it, is not to engage in your conflicts on your behalf," I said calmly. "That would be overstepping my professional boundaries. However, I can offer a post-conflict debriefing session later if you'd like." She just stared at me, speechless. Her mouth opened and closed a few times. She looked like I had just started speaking to her in a dead language. She turned and walked away without another word. She avoided me for the rest of the night. The ride home was completely silent. I felt nothing, no guilt, no anxiety, just a strange, peaceful emptiness. I had clocked out. The company could burn for all I cared, but the real test was yet to come. I knew her usual problems, work, friends, internet strangers, were just minor service requests. I was waiting for a system-critical 5-alarm emergency, and it arrived about a week later. It involved her cat. She loved that cat more than anything. It was an old, grumpy Persian she'd had since before we met. I came home from the one day a week I had to go into the office. Stacy was sitting on the couch, looking distressed. This was different from her usual "I'm mad at the world" look. This was genuine fear. "What's wrong?" I asked. "It's the cat," she said, her voice trembling. "He hasn't eaten all day. He's just been hiding under the bed." This was serious. Old me would have been on the floor with a flashlight instantly, cooing at the cat, trying to coax him out. I'd be looking up emergency vet numbers, reassuring her that everything was going to be okay. I stood there in the living room. I processed the information. A sudden change in an animal's eating habits and behavior can be an indicator of a significant health issue, I stated. The recommended course of action is to seek immediate consultation with a qualified veterinarian. She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Seth, what is wrong with you? Can't you see I'm scared?" "I have acknowledged your emotional state of fear," I replied, my tone perfectly level. "My recommendation remains the same. Shall I Google the number for the 24-hour emergency vet clinic for you?" She started to cry. Real, desperate tears. "I don't want a search engine. I want my boyfriend." It was a direct plea, an appeal to the man I used to be. I felt a tiny flicker of something. Pity, maybe? I extinguished it immediately. I had my new operating procedures. I had to follow them. "The entity you are referring to as your boyfriend is not equipped to provide veterinary medical advice," I said. "Contacting a professional is the most logical and effective step to ensure the well-being of your pet." I took out my phone, found the number, and read it out to her. She just sobbed, dialing the number with shaking hands. I didn't comfort her. I didn't hug her. I went to the kitchen and started methodically unpacking the dishwasher. My work here was done. I had provided a solution. The rest was her problem. She got an appointment at the emergency vet clinic that night. I drove her there. I didn't offer. She asked and I agreed. Transportation was a reasonable logistical request. The car ride was silent, except for her quiet sniffling. I didn't turn on the radio. I just drove. At the clinic, they took the cat to the back for an examination. We were left in the waiting room. It was sterile and quiet, smelled like antiseptic. She was a wreck, pacing, chewing on her nails, staring at the door the vet had disappeared through. She kept looking at me, her eyes pleading for something, a kind word, a squeeze of the hand, anything. I just sat on one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs, scrolling through news articles on my phone. I was present, but I wasn't there. After what felt like an eternity, the vet came out. The news wasn't good. The cat had a severe blockage. He was in critical condition. He needed emergency surgery, and even then, the vet said his chances were only about 50-50. The cost of the surgery was going to be thousands of dollars. Stacy just crumpled. It was like the vet's words were a physical blow. She leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with huge, gut-wrenching sobs. This was it, the main event, the system-critical failure I had been waiting for. She was completely broken. She looked up at me from the floor, her face a mess of tears and mascara. "Seth," she choked out, "please, I'm begging you. I'm so scared. I can't do this alone. Just tell me it's going to be okay. Please, just hold me." This was the ultimate test of my new policy. This was a direct request for the very thing she had defined as unpaid labor. I looked down at her on the floor. Then, I calmly glanced at my phone to check the time. I looked back at her. My voice was quiet but not unkind. It was just neutral, factual. "Stacy," I began. "It's 8:30 p.m. My designated workday ended at 6 p.m. I let that sink in for a moment. Emotional support, as you have previously clarified, is a form of labor. Providing this service outside of standard hours would be considered overtime. I paused again. As we do not have a pre-existing agreement or compensation structure for such work, I am unfortunately unable to fulfill your request at this time. The sobbing stopped. Instantly. She just froze, still huddled on the floor. She slowly lifted her head, her tear-filled eyes wide with a dawning, horrified realization. It was the look of someone who has just been checkmated in a game they invented. She was staring at a monster that she had created, built from her own words and theories. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. What could she say? "You're wrong? That's not what I meant." It was exactly what she meant. I had just taken her at her word. I stood up. "I will be in the car," I said. "Let me know what you decide regarding the surgical procedure. I can facilitate the payment if you choose to proceed." Then I turned and walked out, leaving her there on the cold, sterile floor of the vet's office, alone. She ended up paying for the surgery. The cat, against the odds, actually pulled through. I picked them both up a few days later. Stacy was different, quiet, subdued. The lectures stopped. The complaints stopped. The constant need for validation stopped. She was trying. She started asking about my day and actually listening to the answer. She made me dinner a few times. She was trying to be the girlfriend she used to be, but it was too late. The snap that had happened inside me, it didn't unsnap. I couldn't look at her without hearing her lecture me about emotional labor. I couldn't see her cry without picturing her on that clinic floor. The trust, the intimacy, the very foundation of the relationship was gone. It had been replaced by a transaction, and I no longer wanted to be a part of it. About a week after the cat came home, I started packing my things. It was a Saturday morning. I just got some boxes from the storage closet and started putting my books in them. She came into the room and saw what I was doing. Her face went pale. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm moving out," I said, not stopping my packing. She started to cry again, but these were different tears. Not the dramatic look-at-me tears from before. These were quiet, desperate ones. "Seth, please don't," she said. "I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. All that stuff I said, it was stupid. I just read it online and I finally stopped and looked at her. "It's not about you being wrong, Stacy," I said, and my voice was finally my own again, not a robot's. "It's about you showing me the truth." I picked up another book and placed it in the box. "You showed me how you really see a relationship. You see it as a job, a list of duties and obligations. You weren't my partner, you were my supervisor. And I was an employee you were taking for granted. I taped up the box and reached for another one. Well, I quit. I looked around the room at all the things that were once ours. Consider this my 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately. She didn't have a response to that. She just stood there and watched me pack up 2 years of my life. I called Willie, and he came over with his truck to help me move my stuff into a storage unit. He didn't ask a lot of questions. He just saw the boxes, saw my face, and nodded. He knew. As we carried the last box out, Stacy was standing in the doorway. "So, this is it?" she asked, her voice hollow. "After everything?" I stopped and looked at her one last time. "You wanted me to value your emotional labor," I said. "Well, I've finally learned to value mine, and it's worth more than this." I walked out and didn't look back. I stayed on Willie's couch for a couple of weeks while I found a new apartment. It was strange at first. The quiet, the freedom. I had so much free time, so much mental energy that was no longer being consumed by someone else's manufactured drama. I started going to the gym again. I got back into some old hobbies I'd let slide. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages because I was always too busy dealing with Stacy's latest crisis. I felt light. It was like I'd been carrying a heavy backpack for 2 years and had finally been allowed to take it off. I hadn't even realized how much it was weighing me down until it was gone. A few months went by. I was in my own place, settled in. Life was good. I was out with Willie and a few other guys, just grabbing a beer on a Friday night. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a notification. It was a long text message from Stacy. I could only see the first few lines in the preview. "Hi, Seth. I know it's been a while, but I can't stop thinking about you. I've been going to therapy, and I realize..." I didn't read the rest. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I felt absolutely nothing. Her emotions were no longer my problem to solve. Her epiphanies were no longer my reward. It was just data from a system I no longer had access to, a job I no longer worked at. With a slight smile, I held my thumb down on the conversation and hit delete. Then I put my phone back in my pocket. Willie raised his glass. "To what?" I clinked my glass against his. "To being unemployed," I said. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt genuinely free.